Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dan Cohen. I'm the founder of Full Court Press Communications.
And I'm Anna Marie Jones, the Executive Director of CARD, Collaborating Agencies Responding to Disasters.
We want to welcome everybody from all over the country and all over the world who've joined us today for our CALPACT social media seminar, Understanding Our Options. A couple of things are available to us today. First and foremost, even though we're spread around the world, there's 175 of us, we'd like to look at this as an opportunity to work together. So please use your chat window. We'd encourage you, there'll be moments during the presentation where we ask you to fill in questions. And in fact, usually when we do live presentations, we ask if you hear something that you like, that you go like this and you twinkle. I think for the purposes of today, if you hear something you like, hit the asterisk key a couple of times in the chat window so we know at least we're on something that you want. Or if you're hearing something you're not quite sure that you understand, please post a question in the chat box with a question mark. If you have any other questions, Anna Marie and I will be back and forth on the chat window when we're here, and we'll make sure that your questions get surfaced live. And with that, we've got about an hour and a half today, and what we'll do is spend about an hour to an hour, 10 minutes of that covering content, and then we'll have about 20 minutes where it's open for questions. We're live, we're awesome, so why don't we just go ahead and get started. Awesome. Thank you. So Anna Marie's going to go over to the chat window now. And for the purposes of the discussion, if you'd like to keep the discussion going after today, here is a way to contact both Anna Marie and myself. We're all over Twitter, we're all over Facebook, we're all over LinkedIn, and certainly here's all of our contact information. So please, let's stay connected after today's presentation. So as we think about today's presentation, what I wanted to ask each of you is to respond to a question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and we'd like you to actually type this into the chat window, how comfortable are you, not your organization, but how comfortable are you with the tools of new media and social media? And let's maybe say 10 is you are Michael Jordan Hall of Fame level. And 1 is you're just starting and just picking up the basketball. So if you could, take a second, type into the chat window where you think you are. I think it'll each give us a sense of where we all are as individuals and as organization, as individuals with our social media. So we'll let that come up. How's it going over there? Okay. So we may be having some difficulties with the chat, so I'll just keep going. So what I'd love for you to think about is that there's really 2 comfort levels with all of these new media and social media tools. First is there's your own personal comfort level. What that's going to allow you to do is think about how you use these tools personally, how you experiment with them, how you learn from them. And the second is to think about your organizational readiness to use these tools. And they may be very different. You may be in a position where, and many of you took the advanced survey, and we thank you very much because I think it helps us understand how to make this a productive session. But some of you may be very comfortable with the tools personally, but your organizations may be lagging behind. Some of you may have organizations that are using the tools, but you may be lagging behind. What we're all in a position to do starting today, starting now, is to become avid users on tools that make sense for us and to help our organizations use them as well. So we're still not up on the chat window? Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. Please use the chat window when it comes up. So if we had the chat window open, what we'd want to do at this point is really try to surface 3 questions that you as an individual or that you as an organization have about this whole social media thing. So if you don't have a chat window open, write them down on a piece of paper or have them ready so that when the chat window opens up, we'll go ahead and ask you to put these in. What we'll do is we'll surface these questions and try to make sure that we cover them throughout the course of today's session. Sometimes people have questions about, man, is there enough time in the day to do this stuff? Or why would I want to do this stuff? Or many of us are in health or healthcare professions, and privacy is a huge issue. So how do we manage both the need to share information as well as to manage the privacy pieces that go with it? So with that, I think I'll just keep going and ask your indulgence, but when the chat window opens up, please try to make sure you surface questions that you might have about the whole social media thing. So I wanted to take a minute. I don't know if any of you remember these books. They were certainly around when I was a kid. I'm reading them to my kids now. But I wanted to just take a moment to give us all a reality check. There's a great author whose name is Clay Shirky. He wrote a book, I'm blanking on the name of the book, but he teaches at NYU and he's all over the internet. I was at a conference last year, and what he said was that we are in the midst of a media revolution. I want you to think about that. You know, the entire way that we're all communicating is in the midst of a revolution. Now, what that means is we often don't have clarity. We often don't have all the answers in the middle of a revolution, which I actually think is a good thing. because it means that now is a time for experimentation. It's a time for us to learn. It's a time for us to try things, see if they work for us, and learn from that. It's also a chance to really be humble about everything. So our bosses don't think we have all the answers. Our staff don't think we have all the answers. We're all in this learning community together as a health field, as a healthcare field, as a health professions field to figure out how we use all of these tools. So hang in there. Don't stress out. Many of you filled out the survey that said you really are nowhere on using these tools. And what I'd say to you is that's okay. There's plenty of opportunity to learn, and there's plenty of opportunity to make mistakes. I wanted to highlight to you an organization that we think very highly of and share with you one thing that they do when it comes to social media. So Moms Rising is an advocacy group that focuses on engaging digitally active moms in advocacy around issues that are important to moms and families. One of the things that they believe truly as an organization is that failure is in fact an option, and failure is an opportunity to learn. So they may not have been the first organization to create it, but they were certainly the first I ever heard about it. They created an idea called the joyful funeral. And what they do in a joyful funeral is they actually celebrate failure. They tear it apart. They look what went wrong, and they figure out a way to do it better next time. Or they say, well, we tried it, it didn't work, and what comes next? And the big difference in thinking about social media is that the mistakes are easier to make, they're cheaper to make, and the legacy of those mistakes goes away very quickly. So if any of you are in change-averse or risk-averse organizations, what social media allows us to do are make these mistakes and then learn from them quickly, change what we're doing, and move on. So celebrate our mistakes, which is a little counterintuitive as we think about our everyday work. I think the third thing to keep in mind as we move forward is that there's no solution that's going to be right for each of us. In fact, as we look across the spread of the organizations, 175 of us are on this call today in this little mini virtual community we've created. I would argue that the social media solutions that are going to work, there will be 175, if not more, individual solutions. Only you can know what's going to work for your organizations, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, how we figure out what those solutions look like. Finally, I just want you to know there is help out there. I'm a huge follower and fan of a woman named Beth Cantor. I think that hands down, she's one of the smartest people thinking about how to connect healthcare, health organizations, nonprofits with these social media tools and rebuild our organizations so that we're using them effectively. But on the whole, one of the opportunities around greater adoption of social media is that it's a totally democratic process with a small d, that everybody believes in using these tools, in sharing their knowledge, in sharing their experiences. And if you engage in any learning opportunities online, people like Beth, people like Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist, are out there actively seeking stories about what people have tried, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. In the slideshow presentation that's going to be along with us today, there's an entire second half of the presentation that we won't get to, but it's a presentation that we're willing to share about some peer learning opportunities, things how organizations are using social media, and maybe some things you haven't tried. In addition, at bethcantor.org, she's scooping up these stories and collecting them and analyzing them and putting them back out for all of us. So almost no matter what you're thinking about trying, whether it's health education programs, whether it's retention and enrollment programs, take a look at Beth's site and type in some search words and you just might find some information that makes sense or that can guide your efforts. So are we, just a quick note, is the chat not working?
I think people would have to reload their pages in order to get it to come up with this.
Okay.
If it's going to work at all, but it's not working for me.
Okay.
How
So
do we do Twitter?
So wonderful. So we've come up with sort of a creative solution, which is that there is, for those of you who are familiar with Twitter, what I'd ask you to do is if you have a question, I'd like you to use the hashtag, it's the number sign, hashtag, and then CAL for Cal and PACT. So use the hashtag CALPACT. That's the name of our organization. That's what we're doing here. And Anna Marie and I will watch that Twitter feed throughout the presentation today. For those of you who are competent with Twitter, if you're not, hang in there and we'll figure out another way for you to give us your feedback. But at least for the time being, let's go ahead and use the hashtag CALPACT, CALPACT. And you can also address questions directly to Anna Marie on Twitter as well. Her handle is Ms. Duct Tape. Could I have your iPad real quick? So it's, can you zoom in on this? If you want to find Anna Marie on Twitter, you can find her using @MsDuctTape. Fabulous. All good? Thanks, Ben. Wonderful. Alrighty, so where do we go from here? So a couple things I want you to think about. As you think about using social media, the actual raw numbers of people that you're engaging are far less important than the candor that you have using social media, the real-time interaction either on a daily basis or on a more frequent basis, and the opportunity to find your own voice. What I would argue, and we'll talk about in a minute, is that it's far more important that you're talking to 50 or 500 of the right people than 5,000 or 5 million of everybody. So again, as you think about what success looks like for your organization and using these tools, it's not about volume. It's about thinking about your audiences and making them as narrow as possible. We'll talk about that. So Anna Marie and I both are huge believers in the easy button. I keep one of them on my desk. I now wish I'd brought it today. Maybe if I hit it, it would make our chat room work better. But what I'd like you to think about doing are really taking 3 steps over the course of the next couple of days. For the organizations that you work with, recognize that you're not alone, that the communities you're serving, the clients you may be engaging with, the staff you may supervise or report to, are already using a lot of these new media tools. The opportunity for us is to really ask around, figure out what's working for people, and then find a way to engage them. The second thing is today we're going to go over 5 basic tools. And what I would encourage you to do is just in the next week or in the next 2 weeks, try one of them. And if you're already using one, try to use one more, or maybe to try to use a fresh one. There is nothing wrong. And Anna Marie and I were at a training with Beth Canner the other day, and she was very clear to point out there is absolutely nothing wrong with going slow. Go slow, try out a tool, figure out if it works for you, learn more about it, and then move on to the next one. And then I think really coming out of today, the opportunity for us is to think about how we keep this network or this conversation going. One way may be over the course of the next few weeks to keep using the hashtag CALPACT, post questions, post success stories. Another is if you find Anna Marie or myself on LinkedIn, we have an opt-in working group there called Prepare for Health, where we're trying to think about how we use these social media tools to prepare our communities to be healthy communities, to prepare ourselves for any disaster or any other public emergency. And we're trying to surface as many best practices as we can. So you can find that working group on LinkedIn, and Anna Marie and I will sort of talk a little bit about LinkedIn in a minute. So one of the last things I want to leave you with before I turn it over to Anna Marie is to just recognize that in this time of dramatic media change, that each of you, all 175 of you, now own your own newspaper. You also own your own broadcast network. If you think about what YouTube allows us to do, we now have the Dan Cohen channel, and I can put up a video of anything I want, whenever I want, and about any topic I want. If we think about all the social media tools, we create these communities, whether it's our 500 friends on Facebook or the 200 people following us on Twitter. We get to decide, just like any editor at a newspaper or any producer at a television station, what goes out to those audiences. So the opportunity for us is to really think about this stuff strategically and recognize that we already have broadcast networks that are far more powerful than anything that ABC or NBC might be doing. So what I wanted to try to do, and again, I don't care about your politics on any major issue, but I wanted to just show you the totality of how easy these tools are to link together. Most recently, there was an anti-bullying campaign called It Gets Better. What I found interesting about this topic, or about the work here, is as you see across the screen, you can see how what they were working on worked on every single platform. You can see how it worked on Facebook, and it was an opportunity to engage. You can see how it worked on YouTube, where people could post their own videos and then link them to a channel. You can see a website that they developed, and you can also see how on Twitter, people opted in to have this discussion. And what made it so incredibly powerful was it contained candor, it was extremely timely based on what was going on in the news, and it was extremely easy to participate. So however you as an individual wanted to engage with this It Gets Better effort, there was a way using one of these social media tools that you could work your way into the conversation. The opportunity for us as organizational leaders is to figure out how we use these tools to engage with our audiences and to make it easy to listen and engage with them regardless of what tool or platform that they want to provide. So I would lose my communications license if I didn't at least spend a minute reminding ourselves to be strategic, so that before we use any of these tools, we have to ask ourselves the questions: why are we using these tools? What goal are these tools in service of? Do we have some near-term things we want to accomplish that maybe are specific and measurable, and then work towards them? One of the great opportunities of any of these social media tools, Ben, I think Anna Marie's trying to reach you. One of the great opportunities of any of these social media tools is that they all have built-in measurement tools. So each of them have a way to track your success based on the interactivity of the tools. So you not only have an opportunity to go into the process in a planful and intentional mode, using these social media tools, you have a way, moment by moment, to know whether or not it's working. And social media tools tend to track in real time. So for example, you can see how many people have clicked on a link. You can see how many people may be following you on Twitter. So in a nutshell, if you have no organizational communications plan, if you've never done an organizational communications plan, you can do this on a napkin. You can do it on a matchbook, but write something down. And at its core, and this is a tool developed by a friend of ours, Holly Minch. Love you, Holly. 5 basic questions, which is, what is the news you're trying to get out there? Whether it's news or information, who needs to hear it? How narrow can you draw that audience so that you can surround them using all of these tools? What format would you deliver that news in? So for some of you, it may be social media. For others, it may be door-to-door or direct mail or television. What I'd encourage you to do is to think about being agnostic about the tool that you use. You know, when we first started Full Court Press Communications 10 years ago, we were a public relations shop. Our job was to get you in the newspaper or to keep you out of it. But in the new world of new media and social media, we don't care how we find our target audiences. What we care about is that we find them and surround them and hit them over and over again. The last 2 questions to consider is, when do these folks need to hear this information? So that you can map out a schedule by which you are engaging with them at a time when they're ready to hear it. And lastly is to think about who the messenger is that needs to deliver it. For many of us as health educators, we may not be the right people to deliver those messages. It may be a peer educator or a trusted parent. So work your way through these 5 questions, and I think they'll help you think about the tools that you want to use. So the tools that are out there and available to us, Beth Cantor has a great phrase in which she says that first we crawl, then we run, then we fly. Or crawl, walk, run, and fly. And it's just a reminder to all of us to retain our humility that we are all on this path together. We're all learning how to use these tools. I've become a much better user of one tool over the course of the years than I ever was when I first started. And all of us are going to be like that. So hang in there. So far so good? Everybody okay out there? Thumbs up? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk away, and Anna Marie's going to walk us through some more background as well as the first of our 2 of our big 5 tools. Excuse me.
Awesome, thank you, Dan. Alrighty, let's look at a few things. In every class we have ever done with social media for public health related people, we've asked certain questions. And one of them is about barriers, because the truth is it's easy to say, jump on these tools and do this for your organization. But if we are not willing to look at the barriers and just be honest that we have them, that we can overcome them, then it becomes a reason why we don't embrace them. So one of the things we wanted to do was to just ask you to think about these basic questions. What are the common barriers you're going to face related to social media inside your organization? Obviously, as an individual, you can take on social media with gusto if you choose. But for your organization, really consider, what are those big barriers? Why is it that using these tools is so important? So many things come and go, and it's hard to tell sometimes which things to jump on. But if you really consider the impact social media is having, can you afford not to be using those tools? And as public health and public health related people and people who care about the health and wellness of society, I'd like you to consider why it is it's important for you to be leaders in this effort, to really be the innovators and the early adopters in embracing social media. It does mean a difference to our health, our well-being, and since I am part of a nonprofit organization, I can assure you it has a lot to do with your funding. People don't fund organizations or projects they've never heard of, so it is unbelievably important for your organization, your project, your program to get its moment in the sun with social media. So we're really asking you to think differently. I'll share with you a couple of the things we have done to really look at this in the different places where I spend my time. Number one is with public health departments. We have a wonderful, wonderful partnership with the Alameda County Public Health Department, as well as public health departments across the country. What they are looking to do and partner with us on is transforming the way they prepare communities for public health related emergencies. And to do that effectively as public health, they need to work with community-based service providers. And that's really what my organization specializes in. So we have worked to train nonprofits in social media. How can they get a message out? How can they get that message out quickly? How can they change the message so that the message is something that the communities that they have intimate knowledge of would want to hear, would want to take on, rather than it just being the simple, hey, let's just push out messages. Thank you. We also have this with the emergency management organizations. I'm very close and work actively with our emergency management organizations in Alameda County and in California. And the reality is that most of our emergency management organizations do not have the capacity to reach, serve, and address the myriad vulnerable communities, whether that's limited English proficiency, people with various disabilities, you name it, and it's going to be harder and harder to reach for a variety of reasons. So we have been looking at how do we help them embrace social media, because this is a place where we can reach people in a very meaningful and intimate way. We want to talk about the new media big bang. There was a moment that happened actually in March of 2010, so it's a year ago. And that's when Facebook passed Google as the top site visited in the United States. Now, of course, this climb has continued. And what that means for everyone is to really think about how Facebook has surpassed Google. No one ever imagined that years ago, but the truth is it matters more where you rank on things like Facebook. Whether people find your site can be a result of finding it on Facebook, and it does matter as to how we understand how social media plays with our community, whether or not we choose to embrace it. We want to look at just some of the very, very simple things. As Dan mentioned earlier, we love the easy button. We are big, big believers in easy buttons and making everything easy. So here are 5 of some of the most easy things you can do. Number 1, we are big believers in starting with LinkedIn as a starting point. We're going to talk more about LinkedIn in just a moment, but LinkedIn is really a place for you as an individual, as a professional, to link with professionals all across the world. It's free, it's easy, and the results can be absolutely mind-boggling. Then also to just become an informer. Just build a presence on something as simple as Twitter. One of the reasons we are very pro-Twitter is not just because it's the great rushing river of information, but because Twitter is so simple. So absolutely simple at its core, that you could very honestly go on right now, set up a Twitter account, and have a very full and fairly nice looking profile in 20 minutes. If you want to be fancy and have it be more artistic, you could obviously do that. But Twitter is really that simple. Also, to tell your own story. We're really going to focus a little later on how important it's going to be for you to tell your own story with videos, with just a simple flip camera. And even if you don't have any of those things, if you have a smartphone with a camera, you can do that. To go home, to build a robust online network from your work and use the metrics to track success. Have a place in the web, out in the internet, where people can find you in all the different places. And certainly to build a fan base. There are people who care about your program, your project, your initiative. And as Dan mentioned earlier, it's not about being the Lady Gaga or the Ashton Kutcher of the world. It is about having, even if it's 50 people who believe in you passionately, have a place for those 50 people to connect with you. It absolutely matters. We're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, I think, is one of the great social media tools for professionals who wish to connect. Dan usually refers to LinkedIn as my superpower. I've got several hundreds of people linked to me on LinkedIn. And the thing about LinkedIn is that it is not the social place that Facebook is. It is much more about business people connecting with other people and establishing trusted professional networks. So if you just look at this slide, it's got some of the same things that every single social networking site has that really matters to people. Things like a status update, 140 characters, basically 2 sentences to let people know what's going on with you, what are you interested in, what are you working on. I can tell you from personal use that the status update has allowed me to connect with people who I would never otherwise see. There are people I met years ago. Years ago, we connected on LinkedIn. I have not seen them since, but they are up to date on what I do because they just happen to follow their LinkedIn stream. So these are people who, in every other world, I would have just exchanged business cards. They'd have mine, I'd have theirs. We might not ever see each other again. But now we're actually connected. We know what we're doing. We know if we have points of contact. If you look down this list, it's really simple things, making sure that you can connect and know where your network is. Right now, if someone said, Anna Marie, I have $10 million and I'd like you to do a grant on serving low-income people in rural communities, I would go to my LinkedIn and start asking a few questions, posting a few things, and I could find out in a moment how many people I know have that as an interest, how many people have listed that, and that makes an enormous difference. If you also look on LinkedIn pages, you'll see that people can do all sorts of wonderful things for you, such as give you recommendations. Few things are more valuable to you professionally than having respected colleagues acknowledge your work, tell the world that you matter, that your ideas are good. This is something that you can do, and again, you can do it from your cell phone, you can do it from a laptop, your iPad. All of these social media sites are text-enabled so that you can do this without having a lot of computer savvy. And if you look at the bottom, one of the other great things about LinkedIn is that, like many of the other social platforms, it allows you to link other things together. So for example, on your LinkedIn profile, you can have SlideShare, WordPress, Twitter, you can do polls. All of that means that you can share information much faster, much easier, and have people really understand what you are up to. If you check out my LinkedIn profile, you will see I am not trying to collect the world as part of my network. I want a very targeted group of people. I am a passionate advocate for public health. I am a passionate advocate for vulnerable communities. I wish to make that bridge between those groups and emergency management. I am trying to screen out the world and screen in that narrow band of people who will find that of interest, the people who wish to transform society in that particular conversation. And that's something that we can all do. You can make your profile absolutely scream out what your program is about, what you're passionate about, and how you wish to make a difference in society. I'm sure you've all heard about 6 degrees of separation, and for some of you, you probably know that for years it was an ongoing joke, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and how just about everybody in Hollywood is somehow connected to the actor Kevin Bacon through no more than 6 other connections. This is what LinkedIn really allows you to do. You can see who you're connected to, how you're connected, how many steps away you are from reaching the people you want to reach. I cannot express how important it is to know how quickly you can get to people who can make a difference for your project, for your grant, for your community. One of the other things is that it's much more durable. In this time where so many people are transitioning jobs and retiring and moving, now, if they are hooked into you through your LinkedIn network, you have a much better chance of staying in contact with them. In the old days when you had address books, if somebody moved, if they didn't tell you, how would you know? Now with LinkedIn, I am connected to people even though they've left the country, they've left their jobs, their worlds have changed, but our connection remained. So that durability is something that I think we need to value more and more as time goes on. And I'd like you all to consider this. What would it mean for you to be super connected inside your network, to be considered a thought leader inside your network, and to be able to reach out to people that quickly? And again, if you're on Twitter and you want to use the CALPACT hashtag, by all means, send in your comments, your feedback about that. But the reality is that connected people can make a great difference. And there are lots of ways for people to make a difference. Some people don't have to be uber connected to do it. But If you're talking about making a wide change across your community, make it deep and make it lasting, social media is one of the best places to do that. We talked earlier about the importance of you being an informer, informing the community about what you're up to, what you're doing, your public health initiatives, and because I'm in the world of disaster services, how important it is for you to be informing people about health concerns and risks they face. There are a few things that will be faster than doing it through social media. If you look at many of the major disasters that have happened in the last few years, the scoop, the big news scoop, did not happen on your local network news. It didn't happen on CNN. It happened because someone was standing there with a cell phone and they took the picture and they sent it out on Twitter. Many people have heard the interesting statistic that when the Deep Horizon oil well came forth, the very first tweet about it didn't happen hours after or minutes after it started. It happened 15 seconds after it started. That's faster than any emergency management group would have known about it. And you can track back and you will see this. When Sully Sullenberger landed the plane, it wasn't a news crew that got the first picture. It wasn't a news crew that was able to capture it. It was someone standing there with their cell phone, and they captured the picture. That went out on Twitter, and that's the picture that the news stations then picked up. So you being an informer happens now just because you're carrying a cell phone. Let's go over some of the Twitter basics. Number one, a message, a 140-character status update is actually on Twitter called a tweet. When you have people and you want them to follow you, they are called your followers. I'd like you to consider that Twitter is this huge rushing river of information. Now it's got 500 million users, and some of them, yes, are tweeting things that you don't care about and you don't want to care about, you know, like what they had for breakfast. But the truth is, you can ignore all of those people, and I do. You just don't have to follow them. So if people are tweeting things that you don't care about, don't follow them. If you're following them and they're tweeting things you don't care about, you can unfollow them. It is all one click away. You can choose who you wish to follow. So if there is someone who's tweeting out information that you find interesting, it's about your topic or about something you care about passionately, or they provide good resources, you follow them. And that way, when you log into Twitter, those people are the people that are populating your Twitter stream. And you create a name. So I have Ms. Duct Tape. Dan is DC St. Paul, and I have for Card Can Help, and Dan has Full Court Press. And you will see the @ symbol, and that's basically known as your Twitter handle. And the reality is that people are using it in a variety of ways. We're going to go over a few of them. If you see on this, you can follow people and you can do wonderful things like retweeting information. You don't have to be brilliant at creating all of your own information. You could be a brilliant Twitter informer by just following people who are interesting and retweeting their information. One of the things we both stress in our social media presentations is that this might be a little counterintuitive, but the first thing to do on Twitter and on most of the social media sites is to jump in and listen. Just see what other people are saying. Follow new people and take it slow. Dan mentioned taking it slow. This is a great place to do it. You could just decide to follow 5 new people every week, and you can search. You can go to search.twitter.com and put in search phrases that you're interested in, organizations you want to follow. And honestly, you could just click on all the organizations you find interesting, your partners, your funders, agencies you wish to know better, and just follow what they're saying. What you will see is the idea of the hashtag. Dan mentioned it earlier. A hashtag is just the number sign, the pound sign, and then whatever it is that people want to be known as. So for this group, it's CALPACT. If you're interested in the network nonprofits that Beth Cantor is a particular champion for, it's called hashtag NetNon, N-E-T-N-O-N. You can follow the conversation just by putting that search stream in. One of the things you can do is to just see who's speaking, what are they talking about, is there something missing, and what value can you add? It isn't as hard as one would think to be unbelievably valuable on Twitter because people get to choose whether they're going to follow you. Here's what we'd like you to consider. What's a good thing for you to be tweeting out? Just think about what would be a good thing that you could be putting out, that the people who are interested in what you do, what is it that they'd want to hear from you? And for some, it's going to be very simple things. It's going to be what you're up to, what projects do you care about, unique statistics. You could just tweet out thank yous, acknowledgements, funding opportunities, partnership opportunities. The world of what to tweet is absolutely endless. And honestly, if you just sat there and created a tweet about what you're up to, a thank you, an interesting quote, an interesting statistic, you could very quickly become a master at the entire world of Twitter. We've got a few things that we wanted to share just in terms of how you can manage all of this. Dan and I are both fans of the site called Hootsuite. It is a site that allows you to manage your various social media sites. So for example, I have Hootsuite now loaded up on my iPad. It allows me to see what I'm tweeting, what people are tweeting about me. I can post to my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my Twitter accounts, all from one site. For those of you who are technologically more challenged, or you feel less confident about embracing all sorts of different technology, this is one simple way to do it. Hootsuite allows you to just get on there, you can follow people, you can make sure that you know that you are posting consistently. It also allows you to bank your tweets. So if you've got a free afternoon on Sunday and you just want to sit there and bang out 50 tweets, you can schedule them and then have Hootsuite send it out for you. These platforms are meant to be super easy, so you will notice that they tend to now follow a particular pattern in terms of their layout, design, so that when you go from one site to another, they look incredibly simple and similar. So I'd like you to just reflect. What are your barriers? Who are your skeptics? Who's already using the tools? And I promise you that you already have people that are insiders to you, people you are close to, who are experts at this. Some of you probably have children who are experts at this. They are masters of Facebook, so you don't actually have to go out and get the high-priced consultants that used to rule the day. Some of you may remember when you had websites that you had to hire the fancy consultants to do. Now you could get a 12-year-old and they could do actually a really great Facebook page. They could set up your LinkedIn profile. This is a game changer to have that level of simplicity at your fingertips for free. All of these sites are free. Now I'm going to turn it back to Dan, and he's going to really go into some of the wonderful ways that we can use things like videos, photos, and all of that. So Dan, thank you.
Do you want to go on? Well, I'm doing tweeting and stuff. So thank you, Anna-Marie. That's all right, go through. We're all friends here. So one of the great opportunities in thinking about all these social media tools is that, again, we have platforms where we can put up whatever we want. It's incredibly powerful to think about everything we've got in our toolkit at the office. We probably have photos. We probably have videos. We can create our own videos. And now we don't have to rely on the local newspaper to get them out. So there are a few amazing tools I wanted to share with you quickly where we get to make our own news. We get to define what's important. And if we do our job using things like Twitter and LinkedIn, we then disseminate out this news, these videos or these pictures using those tools and others. So there is a tool called the Flip Camera. Raise your hand if you've ever used a flip camera. It will change your life. $100. It's a little camera. You can see it on the screen behind me. And you literally point and shoot, just like these guys are doing. There's one button on the device, and it's the thumb. You just press it and you shoot. What's amazing about this is that out of the side of the flip camera comes a little device that you literally stick into the side of the computer. And everything you need to edit that video, everything you need to post that video online, either on your website or on YouTube, is built directly into that camera. Now, this is transformative, game-changing stuff. For any of us who've ever tried to get video of something we were working on, now it's just that easy, with apologies to our cameraman, it's just that easy to get this stuff online. Now think about how powerful a tool that could be for you. It's a way to capture interesting moments. It's a way to make sure that if there's something cool happening or some information that one of your leaders has, that they can push it out very easily. It's also a way to quickly make a point. These videos, or a video you may create using things other than a flip camera, because we now have all YouTube, and YouTube, by the way, is the second most powerful search engine behind Facebook at this point. It's a great way to get our information out there. So a bunch of students at Lawrence University created a video about H1N1 awareness using flip cams. There's a link in the presentation. I'd encourage you to watch it because it's actually pretty high quality for something that was created. And what it also allows you to do is give that camera to a stakeholder who's the appropriate messenger to reach your target audience. So if you're trying to do teen education and you're a bunch of old folks like me sitting behind a desk, are we really the right people to try to figure out how to talk to teens about an issue? Maybe not, but if we throw a flip camera at one of our friends or one of our kids or one of our employees who may be appropriate to help think about a creative way to do it, it's very easy and very fast now to capture that information and disseminate it using YouTube and using Facebook and using LinkedIn, where you can now embed all of these videos. Again, I talked about before, and I mean it, we all now own our own broadcast network. This is a broadcast network for an advocacy organization that we do some work with here in California to advocate for greater funds for health and human services in the California budget. We have our own TV channel. We can post footage of rallies. We can post interviews with families who are impacted by California state budget cuts. We get to decide what goes on that network, and our job is to go out there and find people to get them to watch the videos and to make it as easy as possible for them. The second piece is to think about how we use photos to determine the context of the debate. Here are some pictures that we took at a recent event for fighting childhood obesity. My smartphone is in my briefcase, but if any of you have a smartphone, hold it up in the air, because in reality, this is a tool that we can now change the debate instantly. And if you want to see an example of how, let's look at it. So if this is Twitter has a built-in tool that allows you to instantly, if you download the Twitter application to your iPhone or to your BlackBerry, it's very easy and it's free, of course, like everything, it's free, because they want us to use these tools. You can quickly upload photos of what's happening in your world. So here's a photo from last October as one candidate for lieutenant governor in California was hosting a rally or a public event. The other candidate for lieutenant governor was sitting there having a cup of coffee with a campaign aide. So of course all the political reporters were covering the rally, and one of them snuck around the back and took a picture. And instantly he was defining the terms of the debate about what the candidates were doing and their relative their approach to the campaign, and it was a way to quickly define the terms of the debate. So if you're carrying around one of those flip cameras or one of those BlackBerries or one of those iPhones, you can instantly snap a shot, upload it to at least the people that are following you, and start helping to shape the public debate. There are other tools where you can actually collect photos. So this is a tool called Flickr. There's another tool called Photo Bucket. These are opportunities for you to not just take your photos and make them available to the world, but to actually ask others to aggregate their photos with you. So if you're a health educator and you're doing events in the field, think about how powerful it is to get photos of people who are working throughout the community, or people who may be working throughout your health facility or throughout your county, and get them to aggregate their photos all in one place. It allows you to do a couple of things. One is you've got a great new pool to draw from for photos for your website or photos for your Twitter feed or photos for Facebook. It also makes all of your photos more accessible to the audiences that matter to you. So bringing all these photos in-house is a way to say, all right, let's make our visuals as easy as possible for others to use and consume and make their own. So I want you to just take a second. As you think about what you've seen in your own organization, what do you have to use? Do you have a shelf full of photos? Do you have a wall full of DVDs of videos? The great thing about all these online tools is that it's very easy to put them right back up and make them available on YouTube or on other websites. So how could you use these videos or photos to restart, kickstart, or change a discussion that may be going on out there? And where would you post it in a way to try to reach your target audience? So take a second to think about what you've got on the shelf. Okay. So who here has a website that's totally impossible to change? I do. Who here has a guy who's like somebody's nephew, who's the guy you got to call, and maybe he'll take like a week to make a change on your website, right? We're all laughing here and there, right? We've all been there. One of the amazing things about these social media tools is that there are tools called WordPress and others that allow us to quickly build our own website. Very quickly build our own website in a way that can connect into our existing calcified websites, but allows us to move and mix and bring all this content together very quickly. So if you use a tool like WordPress or others, it's very easy to quickly build a website. They're cheap, they're easy, they can be updated, and they're your home. You own that space. And you can put anything you want. You can put content up, you can put videos up, you can have it stream all of your Twitter and Facebook content. It's your place on the web, right? Remember, you own this newspaper. And it's very easy to get started. You just go to wordpress.com. We have a tutorial that we can send you a link. It's a video tutorial and a PowerPoint tutorial, but literally it's 5 minutes and you're up and running with your own website. And think about how powerful that might be for those of you who wrestle really with your own organizational properties. So take a look at WordPress, and what it allows you to do is, just like all these other social media tools, it's got the tracking built right in. You can know instantly who your unique visitors are, how many times your page has been hit, how long people have been staying at your website. And if you look at that smile in the bottom, I mean, that's our goal at the end of the day, whether it's to engage our target audience, whether it's to engage our boss, whether it's to make our board of directors happy. Now we will have the proof points, whether it's using the social media tools or using WordPress, to be able to track our level of engagement. So our last tool, Anna-Marie talked about the Big Bang moment, which was really when Facebook passed Google. And I really think it was the day that our searching world of online became a social world. It's the day when it was far more important who we were connected to and how we were connected to them than just what other information might be out there. So Facebook really gives us a chance to have and convene our own discussion on the terms that we want them. It also allows us to rapidly put up information that we think our followers or our people who are engaged with us would want to know. It's a way to link to a news item. It's a way to promote an event that you may be having as an organization. It's a way to update your key audiences quickly. So you may post a blog somewhere, there may be a news story, or you may post a photo. We talked a little bit earlier about snapping a picture with your smartphone. You can now instantly update all of these websites, including Facebook, and upload that picture right away and post a comment about it. If you're curious, you can look at my Twitter feed at DC St. Paul, and you'll see pictures of behind the scenes of us getting ready, including Alex, Jay, and Ben, our crew, who are kind enough to work today. You'll see pictures of them getting ready to put on this webcast, and we thank them very much for all of their effort. But Facebook allows us to update information very quickly and define the terms of the conversation we want to have, either within our community or within our target audience. So what are some best practices if you're trying to build a following? This is a campaign in Santa Clara County as they were raising awareness about the H1N1. And what they said was, send us a comment and we'll send you a t-shirt. And the t-shirt says, you make me sick. But contests or asking people their opinion or testing their knowledge is a great way to engage and build your following on Facebook. There's also a way to add free apps. So just like your iPhone, you can install, what is it, Angry Birds, Funny Birds, what is it? I'm missing Angry Birds. You can actually use applications on your Facebook page. So there's a company called Involver, they're at involver.com, and they have free plugins to be able to help you enhance your Facebook site. So you can actually have your YouTube channel on your Facebook page. You can have your Twitter feed on your Facebook page. You can have your Flickr feed. And how do I know this? It's because in advance of today's presentation, I actually just did it on our Full Court Press corporate website. So I was able to upload our YouTube channel. I was able to upload our corporate Twitter feed. And it's extremely easy to do. I think Anna-Marie and I really believe that this stuff needs to be easy and low impact. And so we just tried it ourselves. It was pretty easy. So the fan page allows you to look out at your audience, to reflect back to them what they think is important, and engage them on an issue. So, for example, Planned Parenthood had an issue that they were noticing people talking about on their Facebook page. So because they noticed it and they listened, they looked at it as an opportunity to engage their key audiences. So then they did a post, and as you see, the post got 41 people to like it and 40 comments all within about an hour. So you'll know very quickly if what you're putting up on your Facebook page or on any of these tools if you're getting any kind of traction. All right, so how do you feel? Hopefully today we've helped you feel more hopeful about your social media tools as opposed to feeling like you're in Death Valley. So this would be the point in time where we'd ask you to post things on Twitter or use our feed. But what I think I'd like to do is use the chair's privilege. So I'd like to take the discussion in a bit of a different direction since we don't have the interactivity we'd hoped for. So the second half of the presentation, I put it on here just so you would have if you wanted to download it, but I'll go through it very quickly. The idea here is we've talked about these 5 tools and how easy they are to use, but in reality, maybe we should show you how some of these tools have been used to accomplish many of the things you might be trying to do on your own. So let's look at some social media peer learning efforts if we could. So the first is you can use tools like Facebook to just scoop up data and build your lists. Is there anybody out there for whom just gathering names and building out lists of your target audience, letting people, if they raise their hand, wanting to be communicated with, there are easy to install tools, plugins like this that you can put on your Facebook page or in other places to just start the process of building your lists. So this is an organization called Encore. They look at how people can work in the second half of their career or look for volunteer opportunities, and they're always trying to look for ways to engage people. And as you'll see, even a few weeks ago when I did this, they had almost 1,800 people who agreed to put their name into the list. You can also use our Facebook sites or other sites to do storytelling. This is, again, Encore had 25 finalists for one of their awards, which gave them 25 opportunities to share stories online at Facebook. And what happens is if you click this, it then goes back to the Encore website. So Facebook here is being used as a way to sort of get people excited or interested and then bring them back to your website. So Facebook here tells a small piece of the story, and then you ask people to come back to your website to engage for more of the story. Here's a website that we helped build around the California budget where we asked people to share their own stories. So people sent us videos, they posted photos that then talked about how they were being impacted by California budget cuts. And because it was homegrown, we really were able to hear directly from the people who were impacted by the budget cuts, and we're able to sort of really speak directly to the target audiences we were trying to reach. So storytelling, all of these new media tools, whether it's video or photo, it's a great way to capture first-person stories, including those flip cameras we talked a little bit about before. It's also a way to use video. This video we talked about earlier on H1N was also hilarious and sarcastic, which is exactly how you want to talk to 18 to 21-year-olds who are on a college campus. So they used humor as a way of engaging their audience. They also, again, we use these video tools to build our own broadcast network as a way of coalescing advocacy, as a way of showing people in different parts of the state, different parts of the country, or different parts of the world, how we could work together on an issue. It's also a way to use video for education. For those of you in the healthcare field, I would encourage you to look at what Mayo is doing. The Mayo Clinic has been on the leading edge the cutting edge of using social media, first and foremost for education, not for advocacy, not for patient recruitment, but to just think about how do we take this massive body of knowledge we have and make it available to more people. So you'll see here on the webpage, they have 1,000 videos on their YouTube channel, all of which you can search pretty clearly and effectively. So you can also use these social media platforms to just try something new. So the Alameda County Food Bank here in Alameda County, Berkeley, where we are, tried to do something new using the platform to try to raise some money. So they did a virtual food drive where you could, click here, you could shop, you could buy different things like peanut butter and milk and then make that donation. All of this was built into the Facebook platform, and then they took it off to the website where they already had a donation tool already built in. So they used the Facebook as a way of recruiting people to give, and then they took them back to their website as a way of asking them to give. And it actually paid off, and here's why it paid off. So they actually, this tweet is from Mr. 53. He's actually a football player for the Oakland Raiders. So he was tweeting about it. He was a participant in this program. And as you see, having him be involved, they raised over $5,300 for their virtual shopping network. So it creates this virtuous loop, again, First, we started here on Facebook, then it took people back to the website, and we reinforced that behavior on Twitter. So you can start seeing how these pieces all kind of come together. So let's go through something piece by piece. Okay? So here's a program from Moms Rising that they did. They tweeted at the start of the 112th Congress last January that what they wanted to share with Congress is that moms across America are paying attention to what Congress is going to do. So they tweeted the fact that they had built a map that listed all the moms that were engaged in the discussion. They then posted that to Facebook. So anybody who was following them, their 7,000 people who liked their stuff on Facebook could all see a link to what they were doing. That link then led you back to the Moms Rising page where you see all the people who'd opted in to encourage this Congress to focus on issues that are important to moms. And all of this is off-the-shelf software that you can build to make maps like this. We make them at our office and we use Google, and Google has a very easy-to-use tool, low-cost tool that can help you build maps like these to help take whatever information you're trying to provide and make it more graphic, more exciting. So, and then that leads you, once you click there, right back to the donation page. So you can start seeing how Twitter leads to Facebook, leads back to the website, leads to something graphic and interesting, which then leads to donations. I realize we're not all asking for donations, but it's just an example of how all the pieces could fit together for you. So if you think about your team and the work that you're doing, the key on all of this stuff is to just add it in to whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to exist in a silo. So this is a campaign on National Sex Ed Education Day, a call-in day. This was a toolkit that went out to advocates across the country. And what I wanted to share with you is how just seamlessly it was integrated. So here are the talking points. Any of us that have ever been involved in advocacy or frankly even been involved in helping our bosses, there's always talking points. We're always trying to encourage people to stay on message. But right along with the talking points, you can encourage people to take those talking points and make them ready for Facebook. You can then encourage them to take it to Twitter. One of the things Anna Marie and I do whenever we're involved in something public facing, we always create what we call pre-tweets, which are ways to create content that others can just lift out of an email, plug it in, and there's nothing more gratifying than seeing 50 or 100 tweets that all say exactly the same thing, because then we know that they're going out to all of the networks that they care about. So you can really get down to the point where you're helping people understand what to post on Facebook and why, what to post on Twitter and why. So the last thing I wanted to cover here in the success story is a project from Mayo that I found fascinating. So this is a woman named Erin Turner. She actually blogged about this experience on social media, which was that when she arrived at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester a few weeks ago, she was asked who referred to him, and she said, Twitter. So the question really is, how does Twitter get someone to go to the Mayo Clinic? And it kind of works like this. There's a YouTube video that we've got a link here to that we would encourage you to watch. But fundamentally, here's what happened. Erin's mom read a story in the USA Today that talked about wrist pain. She told her daughter that there was this story in the paper and Erin had been experiencing wrist pain. So out of nowhere, Erin, following this wrist pain hashtag, saw that Dr. Richard Berger, who was a doctor at Mayo, was going to be hosting a tweet chat. Now think about all the knowledge you have embedded within your organization. How amazing would it be to take that discussion to Twitter and to have a back and forth? So Dr. Berger was on Twitter for about an hour. In the video, he talks about how it was the most intense hour of his life. But Erin participated in that Twitter chat. She had a chance to ask that doctor questions about her particular thing. And it worked so well for her that she engaged that doctor after and made an appointment, went to the Mayo Clinic and had surgery within 24 hours, and then posted a blog about her experience. And these live links on the page, you can see what the tweet chat was like, the Mayo site, as well as the blog post. Now, what was amazing about that USA Today story is that it featured Jason Worth, who was at that point a baseball player for the Philadelphia Phillies. And what ended up happening is having Erin talk about it, and the Mayo doctor having helped both Erin and Jason Worth, she was able to engage Jason at a baseball game. Now, it helped the hospital, they helped Erin, they helped Jason. It was phenomenal public relations. It demonstrated the leadership and the experience that was embedded within the organization, and then certainly generates even more referrals and business and opportunities for the Mayo Clinic. So again, as you see, even just a small piece of a Twitter chat can then lead to all these different levels and points of engagement with target audiences. So again, we talked a little bit before about the It Gets Better project. Take a look at all their presences online and think about how you use each of these tools. So we've talked a little bit about measurement in this conversation. And it may be difficult to think about how would we measure, how would we know when we've succeeded. What I've asked you to do as health and healthcare professionals here is to not worry about what to measure, because frankly, people like the CDC are already helping us think about what to measure. So at their website, cdc.gov/metrics, they're posting the metrics that they think are important to them, that they want to measure. And they're measuring things like page views. They're measuring things like time online. They are just determining the way in which they want to define success. And what I'd encourage you to do is go to that website and look at the different things and look at how they're measuring their success and figure out if that would work for your organization. And if it wouldn't, then think about what else you could be measuring. So with that, I want to ask Anna Marie to come up and join me. I don't think we're going to do questions, so maybe we'll just kind of call it here. Thank you, Anna Marie, for being involved today. So here's the information. Here's how you can find Anna Marie and myself online at Twitter and Facebook. Twitter. You can also easily find us on Facebook. I'd encourage you to find us on LinkedIn, where we could not only be connected professionally, but perhaps you could participate in the Prepare for Health group that we're building there and be a part of that. Any final thoughts?
Yes, just do something, no matter how small it is. Take that first step. If you really look at the big picture of social media, it is changing the world. For those of you who are in health and health-related fields and you care about emergency preparedness and disaster response, very few tools will ever come your way that will give you more access to people. And the level of speed, the freeness of it all is unbelievably important. And if you just look at the major health-related issues that have faced our country, where are people talking about it? It's on social media. Where are they coming up with their own solutions that work for their community? It's on social media. If you look at who's using social media, it's little kids, and the most popular course across the country being requested in senior centers is Facebook. They want to know how to get on Facebook, see the grandkids. And now with as many people as we have retiring, very soon our senior population is going to be absolutely filled with people who have cell phones, who have iPads, who are computer savvy. So in a very short time, most of our community will be connected through this. We have already seen cell phone technology cross into our poorest communities. So between young people, poor people, seniors, people with disabilities, we are reaching people in ways that we had only dreamed about before. This is the place to jump in and make that difference in health and health-related fields. And I think social media, it's just that easy, that free, and has that much benefit.
Phenomenal. So if you're not sure what to do next, here are 3 things that we think fit into the easy button mode. The first is don't do anything, just talk to people. Figure out what they're doing. Figure out what you can learn about the audiences you're trying to reach and their own social media consumption. You may be trying to reach people using Facebook that are really only looking at texts. So then all you can do is figure out, okay, how do we engage them with text? The second thing is for each of you who are watching and listening, try one new thing. And try one new thing in the service of some larger goal for you or for your organization. Everything you do should be done for a reason. And the last is, let's keep this conversation going. Feel free to use the hashtag, the #, and CALPACT. Feel free to connect to Anna Marie and myself on any of these social media tools. Feel free to find us on LinkedIn and join our LinkedIn group. And feel free to stay connected to the University of California, Berkeley Center for Health Leadership and School for Public Health, who are a big part of this program. Jeff Oxendine and the rest of the team, and everybody who helped put this on, we thank them very much for this opportunity. Since we don't have questions, I think we'll just call it. With that, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you very much.